Hey, I'm FriendlyBaron, and it's pretty well known that most vehicles in GTA 5 are based off real-life cars, and a subset of those are based off movie cars. Like the Shatara motorcycle being similar to the Light Cycle from the Tron universe, the Vapid Ellie being the same as the Shelby Mustang GT500 dubbed Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds, the Sasquatch monster truck matching the Chrome Bigfoot from Mad Max Fury Road, and the Stromberg submersible being based off the Wet Nelly, a submarine made out of the Lotus Esprit S1 sports car that was used in the 1977 James Bond movie The Spy Who Loved Me. These few cars are just examples. I'm not trying to list all of them at once. Lesser known is that some of the missions and events you can encounter in the game are based off action sequences within a movie. First up, let's look at the mission Predator. In this mission, Franklin is chasing down some of the Hillbilly brothers into the wilderness because they were on their way to attack Trevor. Michael and Trevor arrive on a helicopter and use a thermal sniper to pick them off from above. This mission's gameplay and title is a reference to the 1987 movie Predator, with Arnold Schwarzenegger starring. In the movie, the characters are in a jungle being hunted and trying to fight back against a monster dubbed the Predator, which has the ability to use thermal vision to track them down. This is similar to the game as the brothers are being hunted in a forested area as well, and Michael is using similar thermal vision to spot them. Our next example starts off with the mission Derailed. Trevor has followed the darn train and stolen it, and plows it into another train in the middle of a bridge. This causes both trains to derail catastrophically and various rail cars to fall down into the river below, where Trevor has jumped the safety and Michael will be there to steal some gold from one of them. There's this 1995 action movie called Under Siege 2: Dark Territory. If you raid heists later in the game, you have two options for how to infiltrate the building. One of the options is that you plant sticky bombs to set off fires in the building, and then the whole crew poses as firemen to penetrate the building's security and are able to head up conveniently still working elevators to steal the files they are after. Coming back down, they have some complications with the fire spreading and elevators eventually not working, but in the end they run back outside without anyone having any idea they weren't real firefighters. The whole firefighter disguise part of this mission is taken from the first Mission Impossible movie, released in 1996. Tom Cruise and the team arrive to the government building, and instead of placing bombs to start an actual fire, they have a member hack into the security system to make it appear there are fires, letting them also get access to their target building. In the movie, they are after files relating to the secret identities of CIA operatives, while in the game they are clearing both the files of FIB agent Steve Haynes and Michael's criminal files at the same time. The movie has the famous dangling from the ceiling scene while the computer's data is retrieved, and they as well exit the building under the guise of firemen after setting off a smoke bomb to simulate the fire that wasn't really there. Moving on to the mission Legal Trouble, Michael is chasing the lawyer Molly through the airport to try and get the reels of the movie he was helping make back. Multiple times in this chase, a landing plane hits a cop car with its jet blast and sends the car flying, as the main characters drive past unscathed. I find this to be quite similar. Beginning of the wrap-up, Michael and Davey meet up and intend to clear the air and finally be done working together. Except that doesn't happen. Steve Haynes shows up and begins to try and arrest Michael to cover up past actions. However, a Mexican standoff begins as more IAA agents arrive, and then another detachment of FIB agents move in, and that is topped off with Merryweather mercenaries including an attack chopper arriving. Eventually it all kicks off and the big shootout begins. This is similar to the Mexican standoff at the end of the 1993 film True Romance, where multiple factions of criminals, mobsters, and cops all converge in a single spot for a major battle after a fake drug trade is set up. Similar to how Michael is baited into going to his meeting under the guise of being let off free. The Mexican standoff is a common movie trope, but this one in particular makes the most sense due to the fact that nearly everyone dies, it escalates quickly with lots of yelling, and the grotesque view of the agent's head getting blown open fits well into the style of gore that director Quentin Tarantino has in his movies as well. The final heist in GTA 5 is the big score, and it has two options. We'll look at a few parts of the subtle setup choice first. In the heist, the gang is going to be stealing gold from the Union Depository and then modify and upgrade a set of gauntlets to do so. Getting the gold itself is pretty simple at first. The crew uses disguises to take control of the trucks, walk inside, and get the gold. Once the gold is loaded into the trucks, a mini-game where you have to control traffic lights to keep the Merryweather enemies away from the bank vans is played. When they reach their destination, all the gold is loaded into the gauntlets that have modified suspension and tires to handle the weight. Once loaded, the getaway drive properly begins through the city, and finishes up with the player driving into the back of a truck which hides them from the cops as they look elsewhere for the vehicles they thought they were chasing. Basically, this entire heist sequence comes from both the 1969 and 2003 versions of the Italian Job. In the 2003 movie, there was a scene where they explain the changes made to the vehicles to handle the weight, and then try out the maneuverability of said changes. The traffic light minigame happens in both movies. The 1969 movie dates itself with this scene. The traffic lights are operated by control tapes that cycle instructions over and over in that era. The team in this movie has replaced one of those reels with a recording tape instead, which sends the system on the fritz and causes massive traffic jams. The 2003 movie is almost easier to explain by just saying, well, they hacked it, however movie magic does that. Another traffic jam is created, and the trucks they want to steal from are able to be given priority and directed through the rest of the cars locked up on the roads. The game version just has you controlling dots on the screen instead of seeing any giant pileups or anything. The 1969 movie looks the same as the game here, with the team holding off police while the others load up the gold onto the getaway cars, though the game has much more going on with the whole shootout instead of just holding the door. The shot of the getaway cars getting going comes from the 2003 version, and after the getaway through the city, the loading onto a larger vehicle again comes from the 1969 film, as they load onto a single bus there. In episode 1, it was funny how many people were outraged in my comments that I didn't use the 1969 version of the movie, but that's only because it was what fit better. Of course the 1969 version is better, but it's important for anyone to remember, just because you like the idea of something more doesn't make it true, and the 2003 version fit earlier missions better. The obvious option for the big score involves breaking straight into the vault with a drilling machine, and then flying gold out via helicopter while the guys on the ground fight their way out. Breaking into a bank basement with a cutter through a construction site comes straight from 1995's Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third film in the Die Hard franchise. The bad guys break into the vault while claiming to be doing repairs and steal tons of gold. The vehicle used is not known to be based off a real driller. From my research, all tunnel boring machines are either tracked vehicles or large machines that use both rails and hydraulics to push themselves along. The driller in the movie was an original concept that wouldn't work in the real world, but was made for the sake of the movie's plot, and Rockstar copied it for the same reasons. The Nigel and Miss Thornhill side mission for Trevor has you meeting an old couple who is creepily trying to find celebrities in Los Santos. They confuse Trevor for someone famous and bow down to him while chanting "We are not worthy" over and over. This comes from Wayne's World, a 1992 cult classic about two rock guys who host a small television show, and they have a similar scene upon meeting actually famous guitarist Alice Cooper. They bow down to him chanting "We are not worthy." Keeping on the topic of Wayne's World, there is a random event where a girl will ask for a lift on the side of the road. On the way, her boyfriend she has decided to not marry will catch up and try to attack you. During this time, if left alive for long enough, he will call his now ex a psycho hose beast, whatever that means.
Everyone said you were a psycho hose beast.
Which is an insult lifted from Wayne's World. One of his friends says it when they notice his ex-girlfriend across the restaurant.
Psycho hose beast.
This one's from a viewer comment. Going back to Derailed for a moment as you jump onto the train then hijack it for that head-on collision shown earlier. This may be slightly related to jumping on the train in Police Story 3, a 1992 Jackie Chan movie where his co-star jumps onto a train with a motorcycle off a ramp similar to the one used in the mission. A nice dirt slope conveniently next to the rails. I think that's basically every major movie reference that relates to a mission I've come across, but don't hesitate to let me know if you have other ideas for movies or other references in GTA 5, and I'll probably do some episodes for the older GTAs, especially San Andreas in the future. Except, don't comment about Fast and Furious 7. I got like 30 comments telling me the Jeep driving out of the back of the cargo plane was similar to that movie, except the movie came out in 2015. The game was released in 2013, so not quite right this time, guys. For anyone who seems to think Rockstar are pure copycats and cheats, I offer you a different view. Over my 2 videos showing movie references, there's been about 25 minutes of gameplay related to movies over almost 20 hours of total scripted content that you can play in single player. Rockstar has a long history of copying things into their own version, but it's not like it's the whole darn game, and I find it really neat to play variants of some movies I like and know. I'll be excited to see what movies they use in GTA 6 whenever that comes out. There's been many more movies released that I know and have grown up with, and superhero movies have really taken off since GTA 5's release, so they may have some inspiration from that in the next game. Who knows? Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, I've got similar ones in the description and end screen, and if you like those, please consider subscribing so I can keep making more.